What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Depeche Mode. And we're returning for the first time in a while to the 2013 album Delta Machine. We're going to listen to The Child Inside. So this is a very Martin Gore track, and I don't just mean because he wrote it, I also mean because the Sonics have that stripped down, I don't know if harmonium is the right term, but that word was in my head because I was recently watching the documentary about Violator and, hearing the backstory about Enjoy the Silence and the way that he envisioned it to be a much more stripped down and mellow type of track. And I think he has composed a number over the years that feature his voice on the lead vocal, which are more ambient in their stylings, less dance floor, less electronica even, and just more about the emotion of the lyrics and vocals. And I think this one fits in. I mean, I still think there's a bit of that electronic meets blues styling, and yet still the real focus of the track is on Martin's vocals and by extension the lyrics. The lyrics are, I'm not going to say I understand completely, because there's a couple lines, especially near the end, about playing with dolls, but instead you had to play with your soul. But more or less it seems to be an external observation about someone who has become dead inside, that inquisitive, curious, and optimistic child inside that people often talk about even as someone ages into adulthood. The innocence, the simplicity, and the curiosity that children exude can be carried on for many people into adulthood, and that is something that is seen as being a guarantor against an early death, because if you just get into this workaday, mundane adult life where you wake up, you go through routine, you accept the external brutalities of the world, you lose interest in discovering or imagining or pretending, that heralds an early death. And I think this song is saying that the person being discussed or being addressed has lost that spark. They've lost the child inside, and thus their eyes, their behavior, their whole aura is conveying a death and acquiescence to the mundane and depersonalizing or like soul-destroying adulthood of the modern world. So it's a critique, I think, but also there's sympathy in some of the lines. And again, that run of lines at the end about like you've put all your dolls away, which, okay, people play with dolls or kids play with dolls, and generally speaking adults don't. So again, there's that imagination, that pretending, that joyful experience of thinking about and discovering ways of interacting has now been put back in a box and put away. But there's a line about like you were made to play with your soul instead, so it sounds like maybe there's sympathy in that this death of the child inside wasn't intentional or a deliberate choice of the other person, but it was something that maybe their parents, their guardians, the world around them chose for them. So again, it sounds like a critique, but I think there's maybe sympathy there too. Martin's voice, I think, is its typical emotional, expressive delivery that you get in songs like this. Let's give it a listen. This is Depeche Mode. The song is The Child Inside, and it's from their 2013 album, The Delta Machine. Or sorry, just Delta Machine.
There is darkness and death in your eyes. What have you got buried inside? The shallow grave in your soul. The ghosts there have taken control. Each tear that flows down your face trickles, then picks up the pace and turns to a river inside, a river that will not subside. I can hear that dreadful overflowing sound. Watching from afar, I see a child is drowned, the child inside your heart. I can see you drifting away, heading for the light. I can see you drifting away every night. Why were you always inside on days when the weather was fine? And while we were running around, you were nowhere to be found. You know you should have taken all your dolls to bed, but you were made to play games with your soul instead. The child inside you died.
Electronic ambient minimalism. So, yeah, I forgot those lines about when we were running around outside and the weather was nice, you were nowhere to be found, and, you should have been out here with us, which adds even more to the next line that, like, you should have been taking your dolls to bed, but you were made to play games with your soul instead. It sounds like, again, maybe family members or the world at large or even life itself forced this person into not having a healthy emotional development, which maybe then is part of why now, seemingly in adulthood, the child inside has died and they didn't have the fortitude or the psycho-emotional endurance of that innocence, simplicity, curiosity, imagination to persist and to survive in a way that it sounds like the narrator has. Now, of course, that's just an inference, but for the narrator to make all the observations he is, it seems like he must know the opposite end of that spectrum, or he must be aware of the person whose child has died inside is anomalous, or at least isn't as feeling and innocent still as he is. So, yeah, there's an implied narrative here that I can't quite pin down. Again, it's a very Martin Gore song. It reminds me a bit of Somebody to Love, because it just has that, it's his voice right at the center of it. He does get very rich and expressive at a couple moments. And, I enjoy both of their voices, maybe Dave's voice more, but I also enjoy certain songs in their catalog, or I think they fit Morton, I keep saying it, Martin's voice better, if I can get that phrase out. So yeah, I think this is one of those. So ultimately, I don't think it's anyone's favorite Depeche tune, excuse me. And maybe even specifically on this album, I don't think it's the best track. But I think it is an enjoyable tune that fits a lot of their themes, like deep and dark soul introspection, although in this case it's actually an external assessment of someone's soul. So yeah, I think it fits very much in the larger Depeche catalog, both sonically and lyrically and vocally. So yes, certainly I know that my impression of their post-2000 or even like post-2010 catalog is perhaps more sympathetic than some folks, but yeah, again, I enjoy their entire catalog right on up and through Memento Mori. So yes, I'm a huge Depeche Mode fan, and I find the value in albums and even individual tracks that maybe other Depeche Mode fans, don't quite see. And sure, I know there's a lot of people out there who probably enjoy the more recent albums, very much. So I don't claim to be exceptional in that regard. But the point is, I enjoy this tune, even if it's not my favorite on this record or in their larger discography. So in any case, let me know what you think. We'll see you next time. Peace.